York City, San Francisco, Boston, Seattle. The walkable American dream where you can grab coffee without starting your car, where neighborhoods have actual sidewalks and corner stores, where 15-minute city isn't some conspiracy theory but just how life works. Also known as places where a 600 square foot apartment costs what a 4-bedroom house costs in most of America. Here's what the real estate industrial complex won't tell you. Walkability isn't a luxury reserved for coastal cities with median rents that require a finance degree to justify. It exists in places where a 3-bedroom house with a front porch costs less than a year of Manhattan parking. But these cities have been written off, ignored, or actively slandered by people who've never spent more than a connecting flight there. We're counting down the 7 most walkable U.S. cities that won't require you to sell a kidney or marry into wealth. These aren't suburbs with a fake town center where you can walk between the Target and the Cheesecake Factory. These are real cities with real neighborhoods, pre-car street grids, corner bars, independent bookstores, and the radical concept that you shouldn't need a vehicle to buy milk. Some of these you've heard of but dismissed, some you've never considered, and one of them is so underrated that it's basically the insider secret of people who actually understand urbanism versus people who just cosplay it in overpriced lofts. Each city has trade-offs. That's the deal. You're not getting San Francisco weather with Brooklyn walkability for Tulsa prices, but you are getting actual urban living without the financial violence. The question is, which compromise can you live with? Hit that like button if you're tired of being told walkable living is only for trust fund kids and tech workers. Subscribe because we're exposing what the "you need to move to Texas" sprawl crowd doesn't want you to know. And drop a comment with where you're escaping from, because misery loves company and so does being priced out. Let's find your city. Number 7. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the obvious gateway. We're starting in Pittsburgh, which means half of you just rolled your eyes because you've already heard about Pittsburgh's comeback. Good, that means it's real. When a Rust Belt city gets mentioned in the same sentence as livable often enough that it becomes annoying, that's not hype, that's confirmation. Pittsburgh's walkability isn't theoretical. Lawrenceville, Shadyside, Squirrel Hill, the South Side, these aren't neighborhoods where you can walk if you're really committed and don't mind risking your life. These are actual urban districts with sidewalks, storefronts, restaurants, bars, and the kind of density that makes walking the default, not the hobby. The median home price hovers around $220,000 according to Zillow data. That's what a parking space costs in Boston. Here it comes with an actual house, possibly with that Pittsburgh thing where the house is technically on a hill and you're never quite sure if you're walking or mountaineering. The city's walk score hits 79 in the core neighborhoods, which is legitimately good. The weather can only be described as aggressively gray for significant portions of the year. Pittsburgh has 2 seasons, winter and construction. Both involve hills you didn't consent to climbing. Your calves will become industrial grade from the incline work. This is character building allegedly, but here's what Pittsburgh has that the expensive walkable cities are losing: authenticity that isn't performed. The Strip District isn't a sanitized food hall where everything costs $18. It's an actual market where you can buy actual groceries, and the guy at the fish counter has been there since before you were born. Pittsburgh has more bridges than Venice, 446 to Venice's 391. The difference is Venice charges you $30 for a gondola ride, while Pittsburgh just makes you pick which bridge creates the least traffic nightmare during your commute. The job market isn't just universities and hospitals anymore. Tech moved in. Google, Uber, Amazon, they all have significant presences. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Pittsburgh's cost of living index is 31% below New York City. Your dollar doesn't just go further, it goes to a different zip code entirely. Public transit exists. The T light rail is free in the downtown core. Buses actually run. Is it the subway system of your dreams? No, but it's functional, which is more than most American cities can claim. Picture this: Saturday morning in Lawrenceville. You walk to the farmer's market, grab coffee, hit the bookstore, and realize you haven't touched your car keys in 3 days. Your mortgage is less than your Brooklyn studio was. That's the entry point, the safe choice. Pittsburgh works if you can handle hills and gray skies and being in Pennsylvania. But if you want walkability for even less money and don't mind winter as a full contact sport, we're heading north. Number 6, Buffalo, New York, the comeback kid. From Pittsburgh's hills to Buffalo's grid, and the first thing you need to know is that Buffalo was designed before cars ruined everything. The street layout makes sense. The neighborhoods have actual centers. Elmwood Village isn't called a village because of some cutesy branding. It functions like a village, which is the entire point of walkability that modern city planners keep forgetting. The median home price in Buffalo sits around $240,000, according to Redfin data. That's for a house in a neighborhood where you can walk to restaurants, bars, coffee shops, grocery stores, and pharmacies without entering a highway on ramp. The Elmwood area scores an 86 walk score. The Allentown neighborhood hits 91. Those aren't good for America numbers. Those are actually good numbers. Buffalo's comeback is real, but uneven, which means there's still opportunity if you know where to look. The city lost half its population between 1950 and 2010. That's catastrophic, but it also means the bones of a major city are still here, built for twice as many people, waiting for anyone willing to deal with the snow. And let's address it. The snow is not a cute seasonal inconvenience. Buffalo averages 95 inches annually, according to NOAA data. That's the lake effect snow band has parked over your house like an unwanted relative who won't leave weather. Your snowblower will require more maintenance than your car, but Buffalonians don't just survive it, they've weaponized it. Schools don't close. Businesses stay open. Life continues because stopping would mean admitting the lake won, and that's not happening. The cultural infrastructure punches way above its weight. The Albright Knox Art Gallery is world class. Kleinhans Music Hall hosts the Buffalo Philharmonic in a building that's a National Historic Landmark. These aren't small city amenities trying to compensate. These are legitimate institutions that exist because Buffalo used to be one of the 10 largest cities in America. Buffalo invented the chicken wing in 1964 at the Anchor Bar. The city also invented the grain elevator and air conditioning. Buffalo's contribution to civilization, wings, and the ability to survive summer. Priorities appropriately calibrated. The food scene is criminally underrated. The West Side has one of the largest refugee resettlement populations in the country, which means the international food scene is authentic, not performed. You're not eating at a restaurant that's inspired by a cuisine. You're eating at a restaurant run by people who brought that cuisine here. The job market is anchored by healthcare and education. Roswell Park Cancer Institute, Buffalo General, the University at Buffalo. The waterfront redevelopment is real, not renderings. Canalside actually exists. One realtor told us off the record. People move here thinking it's a compromise. Then they realize they can afford a house in Elmwood Village and walk to everything, and they stop feeling like they settled. Picture this: Sunday afternoon in Allentown. You walk to Spot Coffee, hit the Elmwood Strip for bookstores, grab dinner without a reservation, and catch a show at Babaville. Your housing costs are 60% less than Boston. The trade-off is winter, and the psychological weight of living in a place that's been the punchline for decades. Can you handle that? Because if you can, Buffalo delivers walkable urbanism at a price point that shouldn't exist in 2024. But if East Coast winters are a deal breaker entirely, we're heading south to a city that's being discovered fast enough that the affordability window is closing. Number 5. Richmond, Virginia, the Southern Surprise. Richmond is the compromise city, not as cold as Buffalo, not as cheap as Cleveland, not as overlooked as the cities we haven't gotten to yet, but walkable, genuinely urban, and still affordable enough that people without tech salaries can actually live there. The clock is ticking on that last part. You've survived Pittsburgh's hills and Buffalo's snow. Richmond is where we test whether you're willing to trade northeastern winter misery for southern summer humidity and gentrification anxiety. Pick your poison carefully. The median home price in Richmond sits around $340,000 according to Redfin data. That's higher than everything we've covered so far, but it's still 50% less than Washington, D.C., 2 hours north. And you're getting the Fan District, where row houses line tree-covered streets, and walking to dinner doesn't require a car or a prayer. The Fan scores a 91 walk score. Carytown hits 88. Richmond was literally the capital of the Confederacy, which creates a complicated relationship with history that the city is actively reckoning with. Monument Avenue used to be lined with Confederate statues. Most came down in 2020. What remains is a wide boulevard with massive trees and beautiful architecture, trying to figure out what it represents now. The job market is more diverse than you'd expect. It's the state capital, so government jobs are stable and plentiful. VCU Health is one of the largest employers. Capital One's headquarters is here, and the creative class actually exists because the cost of living is low enough that artists, musicians, and writers can afford to live while building their their work. The weather is the selling point. Richmond averages 207 sunny days annually according to NOAA data. Winter exists but doesn't dominate. You'll need a coat, not a survival plan. Summer is hot and humid. You're trading Buffalo's snowblower for Richmond's AC bill. Your utility costs don't disappear. They just shift seasons. The food and drink scene has become real. The restaurant density in the Fan and Carytown is legitimate. This isn't a city with 3 good restaurants that everyone talks about because there are only 3. This is a city where you can eat out multiple times a week and not exhaust the options. The James River runs through the city and people actually use it. Belle Isle has trails and rapids. The Virginia Capitol Trail is 52 miles of paved path connecting Richmond to Williamsburg. The trade-off is gentrification happening in real time. The neighborhoods that were affordable 5 years ago aren't anymore. According to Census Bureau data, Richmond's population has grown 11% since 2010, and the growth is concentrated in the walkable core neighborhoods. This is the city you move to now or regret later. Picture this: Thursday evening in the Fan. You walk to Carytown for dinner, stop at a bookstore that's been there for 40 years, and walk home past row houses under massive oak trees. Your rent is half what it was in DC. Richmond works if you can accept Southern culture, rising prices, and the knowledge that you're watching a transformation happen that will eventually price out the very thing that made it attractive. From the South, we're jumping to the Midwest, where a city that shouldn't work somehow does. Number 4. Grand Rapids, Michigan, the Midwest dark horse. Grand Rapids is the city that makes no sense on paper and total sense when you visit. It's in Michigan, which Americans have been trained to dismiss. It's not on a Great Lake. It's not Ann Arbor with the university prestige. It's just a mid-sized city that decided to invest in urbanism and beer, and somehow that was enough. The median home price sits around $285,000 according to Zillow data. That's more than Buffalo, but less than Richmond, and you're getting walkable neighborhoods in a city that actually planned for them. The Heritage Hill District scores an 81 walk score. Downtown hits 88. Easttown and Wealthy Street are legitimately walkable corridors. The beer thing is real and it's not hype. Grand Rapids has more breweries per capita than any other Michigan city except maybe Kalamazoo. Founders Brewing started here, so did New Holland. Beer is the economic development strategy and it's working. Most cities try to attract Amazon. Grand Rapids said, what if we just made really good beer and saw what happened? Bold move, somehow successful. But Grand Rapids isn't a one-trick city. Healthcare is massive. Spectrum Health, Corewell Health, these are major regional employers. Furniture manufacturing used to define the city, and Steelcase is still headquartered here. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, unemployment sits at 3.8%. This is functional economic stability. The cultural scene punches above its weight because of Art Prize, which turned the entire city into a temporary art gallery every fall for over a decade. The Grand Rapids Art Museum is legitimately good. The city has venues that book national touring acts because the population base can support it. We've now visited Pittsburgh with hills, Buffalo with snow, and Richmond with gentrification. Grand Rapids splits the difference. Winter exists but won't kill you. Summer is pleasant, and fall is legitimately beautiful. You're trading coastal drama for Midwest stability. The winters are Michigan winters. Grand Rapids averages 64 inches of snow annually according to NOAA. It's not Buffalo, but it's not mild. You're buying winter gear, but the city functions through it. The trade-off is that Grand Rapids is still car dependent outside the core neighborhoods. You can live a walkable life in Heritage Hill or Easttown, but that's a fraction of the city. This isn't a comprehensive transit city. A local put it this way: Grand Rapids figured out you don't need to be Portland or Austin. You just need to not be Indianapolis. We cleared that bar and kept going. Picture this: Friday night in Easttown, you walk to Harmony Brewing, hit the Wealthy Street corridor for dinner, stop at a record store, and see people you know. Your mortgage is under $2,000. Grand Rapids delivers actual urbanism at a price that makes sense if you can handle Midwest winters and Midwest invisibility. But if you want walkability with actual sunshine and cultural distinctiveness that can't be replicated, we're heading to the desert. Number 3, Albuquerque, New Mexico, the desert wildcard. Albuquerque is the city people forget exists until they visit and realize they've been sleeping on 300 days of sunshine, mountains visible from downtown, and walkable neighborhoods with actual culture that isn't imported from Brooklyn. We've now toured the Rust Belt, tested the South, sampled the Midwest, and your vitamin D levels are clinically concerning just from watching this. Albuquerque is where we fix that problem. Bring sunscreen. The median home price sits around $350,000 according to Zillow data. That's the highest we've seen so far, and it's still half what walkable neighborhoods cost in Denver, 3 hours north. Old Town Albuquerque scores a 78 walk score. Nob Hill hits 82. The university area comes in at 86. Albuquerque's walkability is different because it was designed for a pedestrian culture before cars, abandoned during the car era, and is now being rediscovered. Old Town is literally the original Spanish colonial settlement from 1706. The plaza, the church, the surrounding blocks, these were built for people on foot. Nob Hill is Route 66 architecture that's been reclaimed as a neighborhood commercial district. The weather is the selling point. Albuquerque averages 310 sunny days annually according to NOAA data. That's more than San Diego. The elevation keeps summer heat manageable. It's a dry 90 degrees, not a humid suffocation chamber. Winter exists, but it's mild. You'll see snow on the mountains. You probably won't shovel your driveway. For anyone who's spent a decade in the Northeast dealing with seasonal depression, Albuquerque's sunshine is legitimately therapeutic. The cultural scene is authentic in ways that can't be manufactured. New Mexico has the highest percentage of Hispanic residents of any state, and Albuquerque reflects that in food, festivals, architecture, and daily life. Green chili isn't a novelty, it's a staple. This isn't diversity as a marketing campaign. This is actual cultural complexity that predates American conquest. The job market is anchored by Sandia National Laboratories, Kirtland Air Force Base, and the University of New Mexico. The film industry has a significant presence because New Mexico offers tax incentives, and the cost of living is low enough that creative work is economically viable. The trade-off is crime, or at least the perception of it. Albuquerque's violent crime rate is higher than the national average according to FBI data. Property crime is real, but crime is concentrated and uneven. The walkable neighborhoods where people actually want to live aren't war zones. They're just urban neighborhoods with urban problems that look worse because the city is small enough that statistics get amplified. The other trade-off is isolation. Albuquerque is surrounded by desert, small towns, and a whole lot of nothing. The nearest comparable city is Denver, 5 hours north. You're committing to a place, not a region. Picture this: Saturday morning in Nob Hill. You walk to a coffee shop that roasts its own beans, grab green chile cheeseburgers, and watch the sunset turn the Sandia Mountains pink. The sun is out 310 days a year. Albuquerque works if you can handle crime concerns, geographic isolation, and the knowledge that you're choosing a place most Americans will never understand. And if Albuquerque feels too far from the Midwest comfort zone, we're heading back to Ohio for a city that delivers maximum walkability for minimum investment. Number 2, Cleveland, Ohio, the ultimate value play. Cleveland is the city America decided to hate without visiting, which created the best real estate arbitrage opportunity in the country for anyone willing to ignore the stigma and look at the actual data. We started with Pittsburgh, the safe Rust Belt choice everyone's heard about. Buffalo was Pittsburgh, but colder and cheaper. Cleveland is what happens when you take that trajectory to its logical conclusion. Maximum walkability, minimum cost, and a reputation so damaged that opportunity exists for anyone who can do basic math. The median home price in Cleveland sits around $180,000 according to Zillow data. That's not a typo, and you're not getting suburban sprawl. You're getting Ohio City, Tremont, Detroit Shoreway, Gordon Square. These are walkable neighborhoods with walk scores hitting 88 to 92, with Victorian architecture, restaurants, breweries, and Great Lake access. Cleveland's walkability exists because the city was built when density mattered and public transit was how people moved. The rapid transit system still functions, and the street grid makes sense because it predates the highway era that destroyed most American cities. Cleveland lost 57% of its population between 1950 and 2020 according to Census Bureau data. That's near total collapse. The city peaked at 915,000 people. It's now around 368,000. But here's the thing nobody tells you. That's actually great for you. The infrastructure built for 915,000 is still here. The museums, the orchestra, the theaters, the hospitals, the universities. Cleveland's population exodus is your economic opportunity. Gentrification requires people. Cleveland ran out. The Cuyahoga River caught fire in 1969, which everyone brings up like it's still relevant. Here's what they don't mention. That fire helped spark the environmental movement, led to the Clean Water Act, and the river hasn't caught fire since. Cleveland's river has character and a redemption arc. The cultural institutions are legitimately world-class. The Cleveland Museum of Art is free and has a collection that rivals major coastal museums. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is actually here. Playhouse Square is the second largest performing arts center in the country after Lincoln Center. The Cleveland Orchestra is consistently ranked among the top orchestras globally. The food scene is real. Ohio City has Westside Market, which has been operating since 1912. It's an actual public market where you buy meat, produce, and cheese from vendors who've been there for decades. The restaurant scene in Tremont and Ohio City is legitimate, chef-driven, locally sourced, innovative without being pretentious. The job market is anchored by healthcare and education. Cleveland Clinic is one of the top hospitals in the world and employs 70,000 people in the region. Case Western Reserve University anchors the economy, and the cost of living is so low that entrepreneurship becomes survivable. Your salary might be 30% less than in a coastal city, but your housing costs are 70% less. The trade-off is the Cleveland stigma. The jokes are old, but they persist, and the weather is legitimately rough. Cleveland averages 68 inches of snow annually, according to NOAA data, with gray skies and lake effect patterns that make winter feel endless. But here's what the stigma creates: opportunity for people who can look past it. You can buy a renovated Victorian in Ohio City for what a down payment costs in Boston. You can walk to restaurants, museums, and Great Lake beaches. A realtor told us, "I stopped trying to sell Cleveland to people who need permission from their friends. I focus on people who can do math." The math is devastating in Cleveland's favor. Picture this: Sunday morning in Tremont, you walk to Rising Star Coffee, grab brunch at a restaurant with a James Beard-nominated chef, and wander through Lincoln Park with Lake Erie visible. Your mortgage is $1,100 for a 3-bedroom house. Cleveland works if you can handle the weather, the stigma, and the knowledge that you're betting on a city that's been left for dead. The walkability is real, the affordability is absurd, but if you want maximum walkability with Great Lake access, legitimate beer culture, and the best value proposition in America, there's one more city that insiders know delivers everything Cleveland offers with slightly better weather and even more underrated cultural infrastructure. We're ending in Milwaukee. Number 1. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the connoisseur's choice. Milwaukee is the city that people who actually understand urbanism move to when they're done pretending they need to live in Chicago or Minneapolis to access Midwest culture. It's the final answer to the walkability question for anyone willing to accept winter in exchange for the best real estate value in the country. We started in Pittsburgh, where everyone's already heard about the comeback. We toured Buffalo, where winter is a lifestyle. We tested Richmond's gentrification timeline, Grand Rapids' beer strategy, Albuquerque's sunshine tax, and Cleveland's mathematical advantage. Milwaukee is what happens when you take all those lessons: affordability, walkability, cultural depth, Great Lake access, and combine them in one place that nobody's hyping because it's too busy being functional. The median home price sits around $260,000 according to Zillow data. That's more than Cleveland, but still absurdly low for what you're getting. Bayview, Walker's Point, Brady Street, River West. These are neighborhoods with walk scores hitting 85 to 94 that would be unaffordable in any other context. You can walk to groceries, restaurants, bars, coffee shops, Lake Michigan beaches, and cultural venues without owning a car. Milwaukee's walkability is structural, not accidental. The city was designed with a grid that makes sense, commercial corridors anchoring neighborhoods, and a culture built around corner bars and local taverns. There are more bars per capita here than almost anywhere in America. That's not alcoholism, that's social infrastructure that predates suburban isolation. The corner bar is where you know your neighbors, watch the game, and exist in public space. You can walk to 3 bars from most residential blocks in Bayview. Milwaukee has chosen to believe this is urban design excellence, and the walkability metrics support that interpretation. The Great Lake access is real and underutilized. Lake Michigan's shore runs the entire eastern edge of the city. Bradford Beach, South Shore Beach, these aren't hidden gems. They're public beaches that people actually use. The Lakefront Trail is 3.1 miles of paved path with lake views that rival Chicago's without the crowds. And Lake Park is Frederick Law Olmsted design, the same landscape architect who designed Central Park. Milwaukee's Pabst Mansion is a Gilded Age palace built by beer baron Frederick Pabst in 1892. It has 37 rooms and is a National Historic Landmark. The mansion next door, built by another beer baron. Milwaukee's wealthiest neighborhood was built entirely on beer, and the mansions are still here, reminding everyone that beer isn't just Milwaukee's culture, it's Milwaukee's economic foundation. The cultural scene is disproportionate to the city's size. The Milwaukee Art Museum is in a Santiago Calatrava building that's become the city's visual identity. Summerfest is the world's largest music festival, and it happens here annually. The Milwaukee Symphony is legitimate, and the food scene has quietly become one of the best in the Midwest. Chef-driven restaurants, James Beard recognition. The beer culture is real, but it's evolved past the Pabst and Miller nostalgia. Lakefront Brewery, Milwaukee Brewing Company, Third Space. These are breweries that matter nationally, not just locally. Remember, Grand Rapids decided to build an economy on beer, and somehow it worked. Milwaukee did that 150 years ago, before it was trendy, and has been perfecting it ever since. Grand Rapids has craft beer. Milwaukee is beer. There's a difference. The job market is more diverse than the Rust Belt reputation suggests. Northwestern Mutual is headquartered here. Harley-Davidson's headquarters is here. Aurora Healthcare and Froedtert Hospital anchor the medical sector. Marquette University and UW-Milwaukee provide educational stability, and the cost of living is low enough that starting a business is economically viable. The trade-off is winter. Milwaukee averages 46 inches of snow annually, according to NOAA data. That's less than Buffalo, but it's still winter as a full-contact sport. The lake creates wind that cuts through layers, but Milwaukee's culture is built around winter. The bars stay full, the festivals continue. The city doesn't shut down because stopping isn't an option when winter lasts 5 months. The other trade-off is segregation. Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in America according to census data. The divide isn't subtle. The north side and south side are different worlds. This isn't something you can ignore or dismiss. It's structural and it shapes every aspect of the city. One transplant from Brooklyn put it this way: I moved to Milwaukee thinking it was a compromise. Then I bought a house for $240,000 in a neighborhood where I can walk everywhere. Lake Michigan is 10 minutes away, and I'm not financially drowning. It's not a compromise. It's what cities are supposed to cost. Picture this: Saturday in Bayview, you walk to Stone Creek Coffee, hit the farmer's market, grab lunch at a James Beard nominated restaurant, spend the afternoon at the lakefront, and end at a brewery where the bartender knows your name. Your mortgage is under $2,000 for a house with a yard. Remember at the start when we talked about San Francisco weather with Brooklyn walkability for Tulsa prices? That doesn't exist, but Milwaukee offers Brooklyn-level walkability for Cleveland prices with Chicago-adjacent culture and actual Great Lake beaches. You're trading the coast for the Midwest, the hype for the reality, and financial violence for financial stability. That's not settling. That's refusing to play a rigged game. Milwaukee is the insider secret. The city people who understand what urbanism actually costs have been quietly moving to for the last decade. It's not trendy. It won't make your friends jealous, but it works. And it's affordable, and it's walkable in ways that most American cities gave up on generations ago. That's the connoisseur's choice, the city that delivers everything the expensive walkable cities promise without the financial violence. 7 cities, 7 versions of the same trade-off. Give up the coasts, accept the weather or the stigma or the isolation, and get walkable urbanism for a price that doesn't require inherited wealth or a tech salary. Pittsburgh if you want the safe bet everyone's already heard about. Buffalo if you can handle lake effect snow and economic uncertainty. Richmond if you want sunshine and southern culture before the prices lock you out. Grand Rapids if you can accept Midwest invisibility. Albuquerque if you need 300 days of sun and don't mind being far from everything. Cleveland if you can look past the jokes and do the math. Milwaukee if you want the best value and the most complete urban experience. None of these are perfect. That's the point. Perfection costs $4,000 a month for a 1-bedroom in Brooklyn. These cities cost a fraction of that and deliver the thing that actually matters. The ability to walk out your door and exist in a neighborhood without starting your car, without without crossing a highway, without pretending that a strip mall with sidewalks counts as urbanism. We promised you 7 walkable cities that are actually affordable. We delivered Victorian houses in Cleveland for used car prices, lake access in Milwaukee for less than a Boston parking space, and sunshine in Albuquerque for half what Denver costs. The expensive walkable cities aren't keeping secrets. They're just pricing you out while telling you it's worth it. The walkable American city still exists. You just have to be willing to live where the real estate market hasn't caught up to the reality yet. The question is whether you're making that move or just watching the window close from the expensive city you're already trapped in. If this helped you see options you didn't know existed, hit that like button. Subscribe because we're mapping affordable America while everyone else is writing the same article about Austin for the 100th time. And comment with which city you're actually considering, because I want to know who's serious and who's just hate watching from their overpriced apartment. That's the list. Your move.